Good afternoon and welcome to the Perth Common Good Fund Committee meeting for the 6th of February 2023. I understand we have formal apologies from Councillor Rebeck. I think he's just arrived in Birmingham now, and everyone else to my mind is present. Do we have any declarations of interest in respect of the business going forwards? Councillor Hearn, Councillor Chan.
Yeah, I have a declaration of interest in item 5.4 for the North Muton Community Group, as I'm a committee member of that particular group.
Thank you.
Declaration of interest in item 5.7, Perth Chinese Association, Chairman.
Thank you. Moving on to item 3, we have the minutes of the meeting of the Perth Common Good Fund on the 21st of December for approval. Are there any matters arising from those minutes, and can we approve them? Agreed. Thank you. Moving on to item 5, applications for financial assistance. I think we just have 3 applications for small grants. The first one relates to Adlib Arts, who have requested a grant for £1,000. The grant will enable the group to hold informal focus group conversations with members and other community groups from the LGBT community in Perth, including Perthshire Pride, LGBT Youth Scotland and the Perth Parrots. We are asked to make an award in line with criteria 9.8, and I am content to make a recommendation that we fund the £1,000 requested. Do we have an alternative amendments, or can we approve that sum? Agreed. Thank you.
Agreed.
Moving on to the North Muton Community Group. This is in retrospect because the event took place, but the application was put in before the event. So that, in accordance with the rules, is satisfactory. North Muton Community Group have requested a grant of £3,500 for the North Muton Community Group for their big Christmas fun day. The papers describe what the fun day is all about, and the project was estimated to benefit 360 people in the common good area. Given in particular that we have funds available at present, I'm minded, in accordance with criteria 9.8, to recommend the full £3,500 that they're requesting. Can I have agreement for that, or is there an amendment? Sorry, Peter, question?
Yeah, thanks, Convener. It was really just to ask why we were treating this under criteria in 9.8 and not 9.2, I think, which is with regard to events. Now, I appreciate what you're saying with regard to having money in the bank, but if we treat everybody's event as under a separate criteria, then we could rapidly run out of budget. So although I don't disagree with awarding 3,500 in this case because the events happened, I really would suggest that we write to the organisers and explain in future that their applications are likely to be considered under the correct criteria, in which case they would only be getting £1,600.
Thank you for that, Peter. I think you make a very fair point, and I think that this activity might very well have been looked at under 9.2, and that might have been more appropriate. Given where we're at, I'm minded to still ask for approval of the 3,500, but take into account what you say in terms of looking at applications going forwards.
Thank you.
Sorry. Yes, please, James.
Because about the reason it was under 9.8 rather than 9.2 was the 9.2 criteria was 40% of the ongoing cost. This application originally came in for the Community Investment Fund funding, and it was decided at the ward panel that the common good would be a better stint. So the group could get maximum that they would have got from the SIF panel if they'd been funded. That's why we put it under 9.8, so the group weren't financially penalised for changing their application.
Thank you for that. I'm not entirely sure myself that because they had made an application to the SIF funding, that if you like, that provides the best reason for considering it under 9.8 as opposed to 9.2, and I think that the comments are made still stand. We will tighten up on this in the future, and unless people have reservations and wish to put forward an amendment, I would propose that on this occasion we do award the £3,500.
Andrew, if I may, I've got put comment in the chat box.
Sheila, please go ahead.
Thank you. I actually think the reasons given for classifying it under 9.8 is somewhat spurious and actually sets quite a dangerous precedent. I think there are other organisations who could do something similar or leave it quite late, so they just miss the cutoff. I see no justification at all for them not being considered under 9.2, because we still have the discretion to award the full amount if we choose to do so, I believe. But perhaps not. I'll happily take advice from officers on that. But notwithstanding the merits of the organisation, and I think it certainly was a good event, and but I am very loath to approve this full amount. I just would like some better clarity from officers as to why they think it's appropriate in this particular case to classify it in this way.
Thanks, Sheila. I think that we've had the explanation from officers as to why this was so treated. To my mind, that reasoning is not as sound as it might be. I accept that we have discretion to make awards that are, if you like, without the guidelines. And on this case, I'm proposing that, if you like, under 9.8 we do this for this award, but we make sure that the provisions of 9.2 are, if you like, applied more rigorously in the future to activities.
Yep, thank you, convener. I just think that conflating this with a SIF application, which are two entirely different processes and are not related at all, is what I find concerning. And so if that was the justification for considering this under 9.8, I think it's flawed. So I just think we either decide that this is what we'll do in future if somebody's late with an application, it's retrospective, or we go back to 9.2.
I think we've made, if you like, the position clear that the logic of why it's been taken under 9.8 is not accepted, and that we will tighten up on that in the future. But given that we have the discretion, I would ask that we make the award of £3,500 unless somebody wants to raise an amendment, that we limit this award to the £1,600 that would be appropriate under 9.2. Peter.
Yeah, convener, I'm kind of slightly regretting having raised or opened this can of worms, but I am happy to second your motion.
Thank you. Do we have a formal amendment to any effect?
No, but I would like to lodge my dissent with the justification of taking it under 9.8. Thank you.
Okay, no, thank you for that. Can we approve this award? Approved. And Councillor McCall's dissent is recorded. Thank you. Moving on to the next award, we have the request from the Perth Chinese Association for a grant of £4,875 in respect of the Chinese New Year celebrations. And the last time that this award was made was in April 21, but they were also awarded money for the Mela Festival in April 2022. This application is made within the terms of 9.2A and is therefore looking at the 40% that is allowable under that. They have asked for a grant of £4,875, and I'm happy to recommend to committee that we allow that grant of £4,875. Can we approve that?
Approved.
Okay. First of all, Councillor Leishman, question.
Actually, I put in the chat it's a comment when appropriate, please, convener. I'll let you determine when that is.
Yes, okay. All of a sudden the comments have come in. Councillor Leishman, comment from yourself.
Thanks very much, convener. I appreciate that. Firstly, I would like to say that events like the Chinese New Year celebrations are not only fantastic spectacles, they're educational and entertaining in Perth, and all our communities are a richer place for having diverse celebrations and events such as those. On top of the excellent cultural benefits, there's also really good financial benefits as well. Increased footfall in the town centre, good for shops, cafes, restaurants and local businesses. So the more inclusive community events that we have, absolutely the better. However, I would like to pass comment on some complaints, quite a few complaints actually, that I received concerning the use of firecrackers at the event. People had no prior notification that there would be firecrackers as part of the celebrations. This lack of communication can mean serious implications for people with sensory issues and also for local pet owners. I was contacted, as I said, from numerous residents who were negatively affected, and it was sheer good fortune that in one instance a dog was reunited with its owner after being so scared at the noise and the explosions that it ran away, and it was away for quite some time. I think it was about 4 hours. I did read in the PA that the organisers didn't know that firecrackers were going to be used at the event, and an apology was issued, and for that I'm most appreciative. But in future we are being asked to approve an application. Any application, as I said earlier on, I'm absolutely on board, and I think that this one is fantastic. But I am disappointed with the use of firecrackers in this instance, and I think it's incumbent on all organisers that are applying for a future grants office to be completely in command of the events in future.
Thank you for those comments, Councillor Leishman. Yes, my understanding is that there was no prior notification to, if you like, council event staff that there would be firecrackers or fireworks, and that was remiss of the organisers, and we can ask for a better coordination in future. I accept the points that you make, but in a sense that's not a direct matter of the Common Good Fund. That's a matter for liaison between the organisers of the event and the council's event staff. But your point is well made, and I'm sure can be taken into account when future applications are made. Thank you. Councillor McCall.
Thank you, convener. I just wanted to comment that, in my view, this application, in terms of its public benefit, is no different to the application from the previous request for a small grant. And I think the fact that they're both been treated differently under different criteria, I think it just rests my case from the comments I made earlier. There's inconsistency here. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Councillor McCall. No, I take your point there, and we will tighten up on that. Councillor Drysdale.
Thank you, convener. I just simply want to associate myself completely with Councillor Leishman's earlier comments. We really do need to tighten up on the control of these events and ensure that there are no unexpected firecrackers, fireworks, or anything like that are being set off certainly without prior approval and knowledge of the council. Thank you.
No, I would concur. But if you like, it's the role of the Common Good Fund to make grants to events at our disposal and decision, and it's for the organisers to liaise with council staff as to the exact running of that event and what might or might not happen or be permitted. Thank you. Councillor Peter Barrett.
Thanks, convener. I just want to say that I very much support this application, which is actually for considerably less than the 40% funding criteria. And I think if people look back to the large crowds that turned out for the New Year celebrations this year, I haven't seen such throngs on the high street for a long time. I thought it was a tremendous spectacle, a tremendous occasion, and was a really good fun day out for the vast majority of people that attended. So I'm very happy to support this. And I do think that some of us are maybe getting a wee bit carried away in advance of having a policy on fireworks with regard to the incident that happened towards the end of the event. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Peter Barrett. No, I was present at the event as well in my role as Deputy Provost, and I would agree. The turnout was fantastic. The High Street was crowded, Mill Street was crowded, and the Horsecross Plaza was crowded as well for a considerable time. And I think that the event, given regard for the criticism that has been properly made, was a fantastic success. Thank you. Can we agree to the amount requested of £4,875?
Agreed.
Agreed.
Agreed. Thank you. Moving on now to item 6, the budget for next year and the financial statement for this time and this year. Can I ask Donald Coyne to introduce this report? Thank you.
Yes, thank you, convener. This report seeks approval of the proposed budget for the Perth Common Good Fund for financial year 23-24. The report also asks the committee to note the draft budgets for financial years 24-25 and 25-26. The report also provides for noting the details of the income and expenditure for the fund to the 31st of December 22 and the projected outturn for the current financial year. So turning to the budget first, the proposed budget for 23-24 is largely unchanged from the current year. However, the anticipated increase in income, this is mainly from interest on the fixed term deposit, does provide the opportunity to increase the financial assistance budgets. So the total financial assistance budget for 22-23 is £118,500. It's proposed to increase the budget lines by £28,500 to provide a total financial assistance budget for 23-24 of £147,000. So section 4.6 of the report provides the proposed budget movements from 22-23 to 23-24. Appendix 1 also provides the proposed budgets for all budget lines and also includes a history of income and expenditure for the current and previous 3 financial years. So the usual health warnings apply. So for example, the budgets for the fund are prepared mainly using historic expenditure patterns and an assessment of likely expenditure using current prices. So section 4.4 of the report provides an update on the review of the common good property titles and confirms there is currently no financial impact in the fund. However, there does remain the risk that a common good site used by the council for the delivery of services may be declared surplus in the future. If this was to happen, responsibility for the upkeep of the site would normally revert to the common good fund, pending securing alternative use or disposal of the site. However, having said all that, the proposed 23-24 budgeted surplus of £53,700 does provide adequate contingency for unforeseen expenditure or a reduction in income, and an annual budgeted surplus will ensure that the fund remains sustainable over the longer term. So turning to the current financial year, the year-end projections will be defined in line with the funding request to be considered at this meeting. And this results in a £15,220 underspend across all financial assistance budget lines. So the total estimated underspend for the year therefore increases to £78,545, and the projected fund balance at 31st of March 2023 is £1,897,000. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Coyne. Are there any questions before I propose the report? Councillor Drysdale.
Thank you, convener. I actually have a motion.
I'll make the motion and have it seconded, and then if you can come forward with an amendment.
As you wish.
Are there any further questions on this report? No. Can I propose that we approve the recommendations as set out at paragraph 2 of this report? I'm aware that we have a motion, an amendment coming forward, and can I ask for a seconder for that?
I'm happy to second your motion, Convener.
Thank you. Councillor Drysdale, your amendment.
Thank you, Convener. Firstly, thanks to Mr Coyne for that comprehensive report, and it's good to see the healthy position that the Common Good Fund remains in. Indeed, the Perth Common Good Fund does enjoy a forecast end of year balance of £1,897,537 as at 31st March, including an uncommitted balance of £277,537. As for 22-23 in isolation, there is a forecast surplus of £78,545, which is included in the above forecast balance. Meanwhile, on 31st January 2023, elected members received a briefing from officers on the status of the Council's Warm Spaces and Warm Packs funding of £470,000, which was approved by Council in September, and the additional funding of £100,000 agreed also in December. In summary, that funding has now been exhausted. Under criterion 9.8, this committee may agree funding for any purpose where it can be demonstrated that there is benefit to the residents of Perth. And here in Perth City, we are fortunate to have this Common Good Fund for the benefit of the citizens. Other areas of Perth and Kinross, some other areas of Perth and Kinross are not so fortunate. My motion is therefore that this committee approves setting aside funding for two things. Firstly, £69,500 to be used to support the response to the cost of living crisis, i.e. cosy spaces, food vouchers, warm home packs, etc., and to fund that on an ongoing basis. And secondly, £9,000 to fund the operation of a much needed community minibus service in Letham, or from Letham, should I say, which is a key aim of the local community. As a consequence, any additional funding for this project or these projects that may be agreed in future by the Council can therefore be directed towards communities outside of Perth City who are not fortunate enough to have this Common Good Fund balance available. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Drysdale. Do you have a seconder for your amendment?
Yes, I'm happy to second that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. If I may comment, I think the intent is laudable. I am, with respect to the cost of living crisis and the £69,500, I think that goes to very good purpose. I'm slightly concerned with the £9,000 for the community minibus in the context of ensuring the sustainability of that service in the long term, without having seen any papers with regards to it. I'm conscious that the Common Good Fund has run a surplus on this occasion. I'm also conscious that in trying to maintain the capital value of the fund, we have to allow for inflation. I'm sure Stuart would give us the precise figure, but of about 10% this year. And so I think that on balance, if we accept this, the capital value is, although a bigger figure, slightly diminished. But I'm happy to open up this to questions on this, and then we will proceed to a vote if necessary. I see a question from Councillor McCall and then a question from Councillor Liz Barrett.
Thank you, convener. My question is for officers to understand whether or not the surplus for this year is carried forward into the calculation for the budget for next year. If you get some clarity around that, please.
Donald,
And if this amendment was passed, what would be the impact to 23-24 budget?
Donald, can you take that up, please?
Yes, convener. Thanks, Councillor McCall. Yeah, I mean the surplus, the budgeted surplus for the year is £53,700. So there's two ways of managing the 69,500. We either incorporate it into the budget next year, or we leave it in reserves and we draw it down as required. But in terms of the going forward, I mean the balance, the £78,000 underspend normally rolls forward into the fund. So these balances, that £78,000 is already recognised in the future projections for the fund. If that helps clarify.
If I can ask a supplementary then, please, related to that answer.
Please go ahead. Thank
you. So if the 78,545 is assumed within the budget for 2023-24, then if that amount was distributed as per the amendment, then the 53,700 forecast surplus for next year would in fact become a deficit. Would that be correct? I haven't worked out the calculation.
Donald.
That is correct, Councillor McCall. At the moment, if you look at Appendix 1, it has the reserves balance at the bottom of the sheet. So you'll see the very bottom line in Appendix 1 is the 1897537. So that goes into your 1st of April opening balance for 23-24 a year, and there is a £53,000 surplus at the moment. If we were to put a budget, say in the financial assistance for the Wareham spaces, for example, of say anything more than £53,700, you will result in a deficit, and then the balance would reduce.
Thank you.
Okay, so just for clarity, that would mean that if we were that really what we have as a forecasted surplus going forward is 53,700, not the 78,545. Is that correct?
The 78,545 is your surplus for this year, for the current year.
But it's incorporated into the budget for next year.
It's incorporated into your 1.9 million.
And so therefore the net surplus is 53,700.
Your 53,700 next year is the surplus that we're budgeting at the moment. But if you were to increase obviously your expenditure for the year for next year, that would reduce your 53,700. So basically what I'm saying is you have £53,700 to play with to break even next year.
Okay, that's what I was trying to get at. Right, thank you.
But Donald, that's almost left me less clear, if I may, before I go to Councillor Liz Barrett. If the amendment was passed, that is 78,000 that does not go forward to next year. So the surplus for next year predicted at the moment of 53,700 becomes a deficit of in the order of 25,000.
That would be correct, convener. Yeah, I mean, the way we would play it is your surplus this year would roll forward in your balance, but then we just increase your budgeted expenditure for next year. And you would result in a deficit.
Yes, but the balance is reduced by taking off the 78,000, so the balance going forward is reduced. Please, Councillor Barrett, ask your question.
Thank you, Donald. Can I just ask to confirm? We're looking at Appendix 1. We've got the projection column 22-23, and in the last three lines, there's the 78,545 projected surplus for this year gets added to 1897537. That gets carried forward to be the top line, the third line from the bottom in the next So if that number is lower, the amount being carried forward is lower, but the surplus deficit for the year next year would still be 53,700. It's just the balance that changes. Is that correct? And then if I can follow on from that with my original question was tied up with this, which is that I think Councillor Drysdale said to be doing this on an ongoing basis, which I don't think, to be honest, is appropriate. But just to say, if we did that on an ongoing basis, then yes, that 53,700 would disappear. Is that right?
My understanding was certainly that this is a one-off, but Councillor Drysdale can speak.
Apologies, Councillor Barrett. If I did say on an ongoing basis, that was I misspoke. It's a one-off proposal that I'm making here. And whilst I have the microphone, if I may, I completely agree with what you were suggesting there, which is that in my understanding that if we look at the 22-23. There is a surplus of £78,000. I'm proposing that we use that in this year and allocate it as I proposed, and therefore the 23-24 performance, if on track, will be as set out in the 23-24 column, irrespective of the 78,000 being used now.
Thank you, and my apologies for misreading the figures myself. I think that was your point of clarity, Eric. Councillor Barrett, you want a point of clarification, and then we'll go to Councillor Donaldson for his question.
Yeah, thanks, convener. I think what this is illustrating is that this is a really cack-handed way to have gone about this. It seems pretty clear from what Councillor Drysdale said in his moving of the motion that what he's proposing falls foul of criteria 8.2, which says that the Perth Common Good Fund should not be viewed as a resource to supplement the funding of council services, which is exactly what he said in moving this amendment, that if this money came from the Perth Common Good Fund, it would be able to release monies to be spent elsewhere in places that didn't benefit from a common good fund. So I think that the amendment is incompetent. I think it has been introduced in a very unsatisfactory way, and we're lacking all sorts of detail. So I would like clarification as to whether the amendment is competent, and if it is, then I'll move deferral of this matter.
James, are you able to take that up at all as to whether that's competent? Okay, David Stokoe, can you give us advice on that? Thank you.
Hi, convener. Sorry, I would need to just have a further look at the criteria before being able to give a definitive answer to that.
Can we have a recess for 10 minutes so that we can establish what is the case? My view, for what it's worth, is that the amendment is allowable because whilst I see what paragraph 8.2 says, this, to my mind, is the Common Good Fund seeking to make a specific provision in accordance with its own rules, but I'll be guided by advice. Thank you. If we can recess for 10 minutes until 1:45. Thank you. Can we please resume? Okay, thank you. I think the recess time and a bit more has been good to put to good purpose, and Councillor Drysdale has asked me to, if you like, go through the amendment as now proposed in detail, and Eric, if you'd agree to that description thereafter or not. It is intended at this time that the matter of £9,000, the community minibus service, will be set aside from this meeting and can be brought forward as a project or as a proposal written up for a future meeting of the Perth Common Good Fund. The amendment now is that the £69,500 to support responses to the cost of living crisis in Perth City, that the amendment seeks to earmark that money for that purpose, and that money will be earmarked in the accounts and drawn down against applications for those funds that meet the criteria of the cost of living crisis provisions that have been made. And so, if you like, we are not, that money is earmarked as a reserve for specific purposes against specific applications to come forward to the Perth Common Good Fund. Eric, Councillor Drysdale.
Thank you. I see a point of clarification there. First, convener.
I saw that first question. Councillor Liz Barrett, your point of clarification.
Well, I just wanted to ask, I've lost the thread of it now, sorry. We are setting aside this, we're setting up this earmarked fund, and presumably at a future date we could decide to un-earmark those reserves. And just clarification that these applications for support for warm spaces will come from organisations who are running the warm spaces or providing the packs or whatever. It's not this generic thing going into the council. Is that correct?
That is my understanding, that we set up this money as an earmarked fund within the Perth Common Good, and applications to the Perth Common Good Fund can be made against those monies.
And for the record, if I can, convener, just agree with your summary there. That is, I accept that the proposed addition of the £9,000 in relation to the community bus project for Letham can be deferred until an application comes forward for that amount. But I do move that the £69,500 be set aside for the purposes that you have set out, and earmarked for that purpose, on the basis that that will allow the fund to be reopened and applications to be invited for the use of these funds.
That will come to the common good. Yeah. Okay. Okay, thank you. I think Mr. Stoker wants to make a point as well.
Thanks, convener. It was just to say that, I mean, obviously the warm spaces cost of living fund has been for community groups to apply for, so that they would be, yeah, sorry, it'd come here. So it wouldn't be going to council services, it would be for community groups to bid into.
Okay, thank you. I think we've dealt with all questions.
I have a point of clarification, please, convener.
Sorry, Councillor McCall.
Thank you very much, and thank you for some of that clarification on the amendment. I probably should just say I'm fully supportive of the intentions behind this, so please don't be in any doubt about that. But what I am concerned about is that if we do indeed set aside or ring fence these funds for those specific purposes, then that will have a knock-on effect for our budget for next year to basically be forecasting a potentially a deficit of 24,845, and I'd just like some clarification if that's correct.
Sheila, we've been through that. It doesn't affect that figure for next year.
Well, I don't understand how it doesn't then, because because the 78,545.
It goes into the reserves. I'm assured that it does not affect, if you like, the surplus that's recorded for next year, because the surplus is simply against next year's activity.
Yeah, I don't. Well, there's something wrong with the figures then, because the projected revenue balance of the 1st of April is the same as the projected revenue balance at the 31st of March. And if we're setting aside a degree of funding, well, it just doesn't make sense. Okay, I'll have to take your word for it, but it makes no sense to me.
Okay.
Sorry, convener, could I maybe share a spreadsheet?
Yes, you may.
Yeah. Right, can you see that okay? So, no. Bear with. Does that come up now?
No.
No.
I think if we may, Donald, we'll take your word for it that this does not affect next year's figures, and if we may, we'll move forward. Thank you.
Well, no, I think we need to clarify. Sorry, in terms
there
of.
Now.
Oh yeah, okay. It depends how we're treating this. If we're treating, I've mocked up some numbers here. So if we're saying we'll leave this year untouched and the 78,000 flows through into the fund balance, you end up with the 1.897 million. And that's what you would start with next financial year, the 1.897. And if we're saying we're going to build in 69,500 into next year's budget for expenditure, you would result in a deficit of, say, 15,800. I don't know if that helps clarify. The other option.
Sorry, that basically was my understanding. I had two figures. One was 15,800 of a deficit, and the other one was 24,845. And the 15,800 is because we're not setting aside the full 78.5. So that helps clarify for me that we're projecting a deficit if we treat it in that way.
Yeah, I mean, that could be managed through, I mean, the deficit could probably be managed through other budget lines as well. You know, again, we won't know that until near the year end next year, but at the moment you would be projecting a deficit of £15,800. It depends how you want to manage this, if it's a full 69,500 or if you want to manage it in stages over 2 years. I mean, presumably it'll be a 1 year thing, and hopefully the economic situation will have improved by 24-25.
Thanks for that, Mr. Coyne. I think I'd like to move forward. We'll accept that may be a deficit next year for £15,800, but I think there's still comment from Councillor Barrett and then Councillor Donaldson, and then I would like to move to a vote on this amendment if we can. Thank you. Councillor Barrett, Peter Barrett.
Yeah, thanks, convener, and thanks to the officers for the clarification. It may come as some of us surprise that I've actually long thought that we should be able to use common good funds to support local groups who are providing assistance to Perth residents through the cost of living crisis, and that, you know, the common good includes the alleviation of poverty in our area. Old people suffering from hyperthermia is not something that we can stand by idly and let happen on our watch. I do think in the 20 years that I've been sitting on the Perth Common Good Fund Committee, it has conducted its business by and large without people trying to seek political kudos and provide political surprises on the committee. And I am disappointed in the way that this has been brought forward, which could have been done in a much more collegiate fashion and could have gathered all party support from the outset. And we'd have got a much more satisfactory conclusion and probably a clearer idea of how we were going to allocate these resources. But we are where we are, and I think the important thing is putting this money to good use to help local residents through this cost of living crisis at this particular time. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Peter Barrett. Councillor Stuart Donaldson.
Thank you, Convener. I think my original question has been somewhat overtaken by events and by point of clarification after point of clarification. I think we've got to where was the intent behind the amendment. I think what is key is that this is not being taken on an ongoing basis. It is on a one-off. And in some ways you could almost view it, if it was more conventional accounts, as an extraordinary item. And I think we have to see over coming months what will happen on the inflation front. One suspects, especially some of the evidence coming out of America, and we tend to, we can't defy gravity. We're probably going to see inflation certainly falling to single figures. I think it depends on how low it falls. And then going forward, hopefully there won't be as great a need for warm spaces this time next year, but who can tell? But I certainly support the amendment. Thank you.
Thank you. I see no more comments. Councillor Drysdale.
Yeah, sorry, I wasn't going to make another comment, but I can't let Councillor Peter Barrett's comments go unanswered. This administration prides itself on its collegiate approach, and that continues. I have been involved in 4 consecutive meetings this morning, during which time I have been liaising with officers. There has been no opportunity to consult with other political groups due to the pressure of meetings at this time. So I completely reject Councillor Barrett's assertion in that respect. But I'm glad that we have got to what I wanted to achieve here, which is simply the best that we can for the people of Perth City who are suffering this cost of living crisis and the consequences of that. Thank you.
Thank you. And now, can we please move forward to a vote on the motion as proposed? And I will leave it to Kirsten.
Thank you, Convener. So we have a motion by Councillor Parrott, seconded by Bailey Ahern, to approve the recommendations in the report. We have an amendment by Councillor Drysdale, seconded by Councillor Massey, to earmark the sum of £69,500 to support the cost of living crisis in Perth City, and so applications can be made to the Common Good Fund for the use of these funds. When I call out your name, could you let me know if you're voting for the motion or amendment? Bailey Ahern. Oh, sorry.
Motion.
Councillor Les Barrett.
Amendment.
Councillor Peter Barrett.
Amendment.
Councillor Chan.
Amendment.
Councillor Donaldson. Councillor Drysdale. Oh, Andy.
Stop. Amendment.
Councillor Lane.
Whilst I think it's the right thing to do, I'll abstain because I think this is a matter for Perth Common Good to decide, people of Perth to decide.
Councillor Leishman.
Amendment.
Councillor McPherson.
Amendment.
Councillor Massey.
Amendment.
Councillor McCall.
Amendment.
Convener. Therefore, we have 9 votes for the amendment, 2 votes for the motion and 1 abstention. The amendment therefore carries. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I think that although we all seek to get there by different means, we are all seeking to work in the interests of the people of the community of Perth. Moving on then to item 7, if I may. At the previous meeting of the Perth Common Good Fund on the 21st of December, I said that I was concerned that we were not receiving grant applications for small grants from small community groups. I've subsequently looked into that, and something that has been put to me quite strongly is that for certain small community groups, the necessity to find the funds to fund something ahead of that event, funding that event, and then reclaiming the money from the Perth Common Good makes things difficult, if not prohibitive. And I don't want this to be approved at this meeting, but I am putting it to members to, if you like, gain the view of members such that it might or might not be brought forward as a proper proposal at the next meeting of the Common Good Fund. And what I would propose is that at criteria 8.4 of the rules, we make provision in the future that a grant of £400 or less can be paid in advance of the activity taking place, so that a grant of up to £400 can be made available to probably a small community group such that the funds are available to them for funding the event directly, and they do not have to, if you like, fund that with monies themselves up front and then reclaim from the common good. For any amount requested over £400, the present rules would apply. In other words, no one would get £400 initially up front. It's only small grants of up to £400 where they would be able to be directly paid the grant to fund the modest activity that they were proposing. I'm also proposing that under criteria 9.6, there is a limit of £7 per individual allowed. And I am suggesting that here, this figure has not been moved for some time. Frankly, £7 doesn't buy terribly much these days. And I am proposing that we increase that figure of £7 up to a figure of £10 with an overall maximum grant under 9.6 of £1,000. I am not seeking approval for these two measures today, formal approval, but I would be interested in comment that people have with regard to those proposals. Thank you. Councillor Ahern.
Thank you very much, Convener. I think they're very sensible suggestions. I think you wanted to extend 8.4 to include your first bit, but I suggest that comes forward as an 8.5. But I'm happy with that one, and I'm also very happy with the grant moving the £7 up to £10. So yes, although you're not asking for support now, I do support those moves.
Thank you very much. Does anyone else wish to make positive or frankly, I'm more interested in negative comment, if you like, if anyone is viscerally opposed to it. Councillor Liz Barrett.
It's not negative, just clarification. If they didn't spend the £400, they would give it back to us.
The provisions would be that they would have to account for that £400 after the event. Yes, I suppose that we would have to make provision for a mechanism for claiming back sums of money, but they are going to be very small sums of money in the scheme of things. Thank you. Any other comment? No? In view of the fact then that the two comments I've had are essentially supportive and that nobody is raising negative comment with regard to these, I will take that as approval to go forward and bring forward a formal amendment to the rules of the common good, guidelines for the common good at the next meeting. Thank you very much. And that today concludes our business. Thank you. Sorry, Councillor Leishman.
Thanks very much, Deputy Provost. I appreciate this after an emotive meeting. It's really something possibly one for yourself to, or perhaps even Councillor Lang as leader of the council, to get in touch with our colleagues like Miss Molly in corporate services. I would request that an email goes out to all serving councillors just to remind them of some of the decorum and the standards that are expected in the chambers within a debate. Not just in this meeting, but in other meetings that I've been in. I've personally been interrupted and spoken over, and then you can hear the stage whispers in the background. I believe it's incumbent on all members to show each other respect and how they speak to one another, and also how they conduct themselves in the chambers and allow someone to speak uninterrupted. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other business? No. Thank you. That concludes the meeting.